I want to read you 6 things. However, don't try to figure out what they are yet. Just listen. 1. A nation with historical and cultural ties to its neighbor claims that its ethnic group across the border is being oppressed. They raise security concerns about a growing military alliance. They invoke historical territory and they invade. 2. An island with its own government, its own military, its own thriving economy is told by a powerful neighbor that it's not a country, that it is a province, that one day, by force if necessary, it will be absorbed. In the meantime, military drills, airspace violations, cyber attacks, diplomatic strangulations occur. 3. A country with 145 armed groups and a near-collapsed central government becomes a battlefield. 2 neighbors send troops. One backs an ethnic militia sitting on top of some of the most valuable minerals on Earth. The other provides strategic cover. Millions are displaced, and the world barely notices. 4. A region won back after an attack becomes a permanent wound. The land holds multiple peoples, multiple faiths, and a century of grievance. A state builds buffer zones beyond its own borders. Militias form. A regional power motivated by religious ideology and territorial ambition begins feeding them. 5. A government faces an armed group demanding autonomy, cultural rights, and religious recognition. The government calls it terrorism and launches military campaigns. Civilian casualties mount. The armed group reaches outward toward regional powers that share its religion and its grievance. 6. An ethnic group of 45 million people, 45 million, has been denied a state for over a century. 4 countries control their territory. All 4 of those countries simultaneously support another people's right to self-determination. Their movements are labeled separatists. Their leaders are called terrorists. They are the largest ethnic group in the world without a country. Do you know what all 6 of those are? Most importantly, were you able to decipher all of them or just some of them? It's not a problem, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why that gap exists. And I promise you, it's not an accident. Here's what I want you to notice. Each of those 6 descriptions follows the same architecture. Not similar, the same. Step 1. An ethnic cause or cultural grievance, real or manufactured, that provides a moral cover for state action. Step 2. A security framing, a threat narrative, an alliance, a rebel group, a weapon program, or something that justifies military intervention in the language of defense rather than aggression. Step 3. Underneath both of those, resources, territory, strategic position, something tangible that the moral language is sitting on top of. Step 4. Escalation through proxies, militias, backgroup, plausible deniability. Direct state action becomes indirect, but the violence is identical. Step 5. Civilian cost, displacement, humanitarian crisis. The people who actually live in these contested spaces absorb the damage produced by decisions made in capitals far away. Step 6. Selective global silence. Some of these crises get full media coverage, diplomatic summits, and flag filters on social media. Others get a paragraph in a UN report and nothing else. That's the template. 6 steps. It has been run with minor variation across every major conflict on Earth right now. Let's start with the 2 that you probably don't know well enough. Conflict number 1. The Democratic Republic of the Congo, the 3rd largest country in Africa, home to an estimated $24 trillion in untapped mineral reserves. Coltan, cobalt, lithium, gold. The materials inside the device on which you're watching this almost certainly passed through this country.
This place, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And you're probably not hearing about it much on the news, but it is important, and it is connected to the entire world. There's militias, hundreds of them. They control little patches of territory. Let me show you the one map that got me deep into this story. It looks like this.
Since 1998, this conflict has killed an estimated 6 million people. making it the deadliest sustained conflict since World War II. Right now, there are 145 documented armed groups operating in the eastern provinces alone. 2 neighbors have intervened. Rwanda citing the presence of the FDLR, a Hutu extremist militia responsible for the 1994 genocide that fled into the Congo and never left. They are accused of backing the M23 rebel group, an ethnic Tutsi militia that has seized significant territory in the North Kivu. UN experts and multiple independent investigators have documented Rwandan military personnel operating inside the Congo. Kigali denies it. So on one hand, Kigali is accusing the M23 rebels of being supported by the FDLR, whereas reports are pointing towards Kigali being the very same ones supporting the rebels that they are sort of fighting against in the eastern of Congo. Uganda, on the other hand, is citing ADF rebels operating near its northern border and has conducted military operations inside Congolese territory while simultaneously being accused of a broader strategic and economic interest in the region.
More Ugandan soldiers have poured into Congolese territory under the pretext of fighting armed groups without Kinshasa's authorization. UN experts argue that the actual motivation is to secure vital economic interests, especially the gold and timber trade.
The central government in Kinshasa is too weak, fractured, and corrupt to push either out. The local population, Congolese civilians caught between the government, M23, FDLR, and over 100 other armed actors, now represent one of the largest displacement crises on Earth. Over 7 million people internally displaced. Systematic sexual violence used as a documented weapon of war. Massacres that don't make the front page. But here's what nobody tells you. The silence around the Congo is not passive. The minerals funding this conflict are actively demanded by global supply chains. The silence is a supply chain decision dressed up as indifference. Every major tech company on Earth has a procurement problem that they'd rather not discuss publicly, and the geopolitical chaos in the eastern Congo is, in part, a condition that they benefit from. That's not an accident. That is the template. Now the 45 million. The Kurds are the largest ethnic group in the world without a state. After World War I, the Treaty of Sèvres in 1920 promised them one. 3 years later, the Treaty of Lausanne erased that promise and divided Kurdish territory between Turkey, Iraq, Syria, and Iran. That was 1923, over a century ago. Today, all 4 states suppress Kurdish political movements to varying degrees. Turkey has conducted military operations in northern Iraq and northern Syria, targeting Kurdish forces, including the YPG, the same forces that the United States armed, trained, and fought alongside to defeat ISIS. Let that land for a second. The United States armed Kurdish fighters to destroy the Islamic State. Turkey, a NATO ally, then bombed those same fighters. Both positions were held simultaneously by the same alliance, with no resolution. Iran has shelled Kurdish areas in northern Iraq and conducted targeted assassinations of Kurdish opposition figures abroad. Syria's government shifted between suppression and tactical alliance with its Kurdish population, depending purely on its military situation. Iraq's Kurdistan regional government holds semi-autonomous status. But Baghdad periodically cuts its budget, contests its borders, and limits its international relationships. And here's the part that should stop you cold. All 4 of those countries, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria, have at various points publicly supported Palestinian statehood. They loudly invoked the principle of self-determination for one people, while systematically denying it to 45 million people living inside their own borders. That is not irony. That is policy. And the reason it runs largely unchallenged is because the template runs so cleanly. Every state involved can frame Kurdish movements as security threats, terrorism, or separatism, and the global community accepts that framing. Conflict number 3. Russia's invasion of Ukraine follows the template with striking precision. A significant Russian-speaking population in eastern Ukraine faced real political and cultural marginalization. Russia did not invent that grievance, it amplified and weaponized it. The security framing was NATO expansion. Moscow argued that having a Western military alliance on its border was an existential threat. Now, whether that concern was legitimate defense or classic great power pretext, it served the same structural role as every other security narrative in this pattern. Underneath it, territory, resources, and position. What began as a hybrid warfare escalated into Europe's largest conventional conflict since World War II. Conflict 4. Israel, Palestine, and the regional proxy war. The Israel-Palestine conflict is the most emotionally charged and heavily documented example of the template in action. After wars in 1948 and 1967, Israel came to control land claimed by a mosaic of people with deep competing historical and religious ties. There were real security threats from armed groups, rockets, suicide bombings, tunnel networks, and cross-border raids. All these drove the construction of buffer zones, the West Bank barrier, and repeated military operations. At the same time, settlement expansion in the West Bank, the humanitarian conditions in Gaza, as I call it, genocide, repeated cycle of violence, and the absence of any credible political horizon have created generations of grievance and suffering on the Palestinian side. And then Israel invoked the proxy layer and transformed the conflict. They claimed Iran was providing funding, weapons, and training to Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Houthis in Yemen are also Iran-backed. Now, what began as a bitter territorial and national dispute between two peoples has become a regional proxy theater in Iran's broader axis of resistance, with Gulf states, Turkey, and others pursuing their own competing agendas. Even here, the template is clear. Ethnic and religious grievance on both sides, security justifications invoked by all parties, strategic territory and religious legitimacy at stake, extensive use of proxies, and civilians paying the heaviest of the prices. Now, before we tie it up, let's finish the last two conflicts. Conflict number 5. In Nigeria's northeast, what began as a radical Islamist movement in Maiduguri, I butchered that name, evolved into one of the most brutal theaters of the template, Boko Haram, whose name roughly means Western education is forbidden, and its Islamic State-affiliated splinter, the ISWAP, rejects secular government and target the state's authority. Here, the template adapts. The central grievance is framed against a weak and corrupt state, rather than an oppressive one. If you stuck till this part, then you're probably enjoying this, or you've fallen asleep. Either ways, thank you for your presence. Kindly hit the like button, the subscribe button, and share with others if they want to sleep too, or they enjoy this kind of content. And finally, conflict number 2, Taiwan. This is the closest thing to pure revanchist irredentism. Taiwan is the instance of the template that has not yet become kinetic. And this distinction is the most important thing about it. The island has governed itself since 1949, when the Republic of China government retreated there following a communist victory on the mainland. It has its own elected government, its own military, its own foreign policy, and one of the most strategically significant economies on the earth, producing the majority of the world's advanced semiconductors, including virtually all of the most cutting-edge chips that every major AI system, defense program, and consumer device depends on.
As far as how to make a semiconductor, I think it's still kind of magic to a lot of people.
Beijing's position is that Taiwan is a breakaway province and that reunification, by force if necessary, is a matter of national sovereignty, not international relations, not a foreign policy question, an internal one. The coercion is short of a war, and it has been systematic. There have been near daily incursions into Taiwan's air defense identification zones. There are naval exercises that simulate a full blockade, cyber attacks on infrastructure, and a successful decades-long campaign to reduce Taiwan's formal diplomatic relationships to a few dozen countries, most of them small island states with limited strategic weight. The template's proxy layer runs in a different direction here. It is Taiwan that has informal backing from the United States, well, until recently, through arms sales and deliberately ambiguous security commitments. Beijing's leverage is economic. The trade relationships, the debt arrangements, and diplomatic pressures that have isolated the island globally without firing a shot. To understand more of that, there's a link below. The civilian cast has not yet arrived, but every major war game run by the US military, every strategic assessment published in the last 3 years treats the Taiwan Strait as the most likely location for great power conflict in the coming decade. That variable, the one that hasn't happened yet, is what makes this the most closely watched choke point in global politics right now, perhaps after the Strait of Hormuz. 6 conflicts, same template, radically different levels of coverage. Why? The honest answer to this has 3 parts. The first is that proximity to Western narrative frameworks. Ukraine maps clearly onto a story that Western audiences have cultural memory of. A European democracy resisting authoritarian invasion. The imagery is familiar. The geography recognizable. The geopolitical states translate easily into language shaped by the Cold War, by World War II, and by the entire architecture of post-1945 international order. The second is economic implication. Taiwan gets saturation coverage because the semiconductor supply chain is not abstract to any government, military, or corporation on Earth. Congo's minerals are equally essential. Yet the silence there is structurally convenient for everyone in the supply chain. The third is legitimacy. Israel-Palestine has been covered continuously for over 70 years. There's enormous infrastructure of organizations and political positioning built around it. Kurdistan and the DRC require holding far more complex histories, shifting alliances, and overlapping grievances in your head all at the same time. Illegitimacy produces silence, and silence in geopolitics is never neutral. Silence is always a condition that serves someone. Dostoevsky wrote that beauty is mysterious as well as terrible, that God and the devil are fighting, and the battlefield is the heart of man. He was writing about something entirely different, but the structure holds here. Every single one of these conflicts has a version of events in which the side you're looking at is the legitimate one. The grievance is documented. The security threat is real. The historical claim has weight. You can build a coherent, factually supported case for almost any actor in any of these conflicts. And every single one of these conflicts has a version in which the same actor has committed atrocities, used civilian sufferings as political currency, and received backing from external powers whose interests have nothing with the people actually dying. Both versions are simultaneously true. That is not a paradox to be resolved. That is the shape of the conflict. The battlefield is not Ukraine, it's not Gaza, it's not the Eastern Congo or Taiwan or Sahel. The battlefield is your attention. And the allocation of the attention has already been decided for you. So, let me come back to where we started. 6 descriptions. The same template. Did you know all of them? If you knew Ukraine and Israel and Palestine immediately and had to pause on the others, that's not a failure of your intelligence. That's the system working exactly as it was designed to. The template is the weapon. 6 steps run consistently across every inhabited continent. Ethnic grievances as cover, security framing as justification, resources underneath both, proxies for deniability, civilians absorbing the cost, and selective silence managing what the world sees. Knowing the template doesn't tell you who's right in any of these conflicts. Some grievances are legitimate, some security concerns are real. The moral complexity is not manufactured. But it tells you something more important than who's right. It tells you that the next time a conflict enters your feed with a pre-packaged narrative, a clear civilian, and a ready-made emotional frame, something else is running on the same template right now that you're not being shown. The gap between what you know and what's actually happening is not a gap in your awareness. It's a decision someone made for you. I'm Jay. This is the Axiom Effect. This channel breaks down the one system that connects all of these 6 conflicts. You already know what it is. You just don't know that you know. Like, share, subscribe, and comment for more.